Hey guys, welcome back. Besiege early access coverage. This is episode 7. I'm Enigmius, and today we're starting a project build, and I'm guessing this is going to be about 3 episodes to do the entire build. We're going to do it in 3 segments. I'm calling it the Lobber. Now, I could go into all kinds of detail on why and how and all this other stuff, but I think it's easiest if we just describe what we're aiming for. We're looking to build a machine that probably won't fit inside the bounding box. You see that cube made out of dotted lines in which we're building? That's the bounding box. And you can remove that and build as big as you want. But if your construction doesn't fit inside the bounding box, whatever machine you make cannot be used to get credit for clearing the maps and progressing through them. That's the only restriction. You can do whatever you want. So we're probably going to need more than the bounding box will allow, and that's fine, because this is just about messing around with the different components and getting a feel for them. So what we want to do is create a machine that will kind of lob boulders as if it was like an underhand slow pitch kind of thing, that reloads and has multiple boulders that it can lob and is able to rotate on its base so that you can change the direction. So you can aim left or right, you can adjust your aim left or right, and you'll also be able to adjust your aim up or down based on when you release the boulder. That's the theory. Now, I've done enough messing around to know it's probably a very possible build, but it's not to say that it's going to be easy. So this episode, we're focusing on the turntable, I guess you could call it, upon which we will build the rest of the things. This is actually a very important piece of the machine. I know the things that actually do the lobbing and the boulders and stuff sometimes seem like the most interesting, but without this, you wouldn't be able to aim the machine and be able to take out anything other than what was directly in front of you. Some people do all of their aiming with wheels, and they use the wheels to kind of orient the machine in a specific direction, and that's fantastic. In this case, we want to do something a little bit different and actually have part of the machine rotate independently of the rest of the machine so that we can adjust our aim directly as opposed to kind of indirectly through the position of the wheels and all that other stuff. So what we've got here in the middle is we've got a suspension block sitting on top of the green edged block. That spring-loaded thing is a suspension block, and then on top of that is a steering block, and you can see it's got that red arrow that tells you it'll move in a certain direction. And now around it, we built a frame, and then we put some blocks on top of that frame, and then attached to those blocks are a bunch of non-powered wheels. So they're just there to rotate, and what they're going to do is they're going to support the top part of the turntable so that as the steering block is turning it, it's supported on all sides. Because if you just try and build the top part, above the base, attach it to the turning block, and then try and spin it around, it's going to tear itself to pieces. Even if you put it on a flat surface, it's still going to tear itself to pieces because of the friction. So we're trying to reduce the friction on the top part of the turntable, and we're going to do that with the unpowered wheels. We definitely don't want powered wheels for this. I've tried it where it was just, instead of having the turning or the steering block in the middle and the unpowered wheels, I tried it the other way around with powered wheels doing the turning and just a swivel in the middle, and it didn't work so well. It was not very good. This way it's a little bit more simple, and ultimately I found after having put it together that I felt that it worked better. So some people might have a different point of view on that works better for them, and I say absolutely more power to you. But this is just how we're doing it. So what I'm doing now is I built this sort of plus shaped frame on top of the steering block, and I want to build blocks in between those spokes, so to speak, that will rest on the wheels as it spins around. So we're basically trying to build circles out of cubes. Brings back the Minecraft days, let me tell you. So that as it's spinning around, there's a good section of that turntable that's firmly planted on a wheel, so it's supporting it as it's turning, as opposed to just leaving it dangling and flexing and just waiting for an opportunity to break. Because remember, after this is built, we have to add a kind of a bulky machine on top of it. So if it's just barely holding itself together or prone to breaking now, when we get the rest of the machine on it, we're going to be in trouble. We're going to be in deep, deep trouble. It's one of the many things that I've learned in the last couple of weeks is we get so far into a build and we do a segment of a build and get it just to the point where it's working happily, and then it just, as soon as we add the rest to it, it just goes to hell. Now you can see here, we got a little bit of purple smoke as it rotates around. It's got good contact on the inner set of wheels, and it's touching the outer wheels, and if you can actually see, the outer wheels are kind of spinning because the spokes are touching them as they go by. But just everything that I can do to make purple smoke, I do, even though it's counterproductive, but it's fun and I enjoy it. Well, you can see it's making good contact on all of the wheels, but what we want to do is we want to extend it so that we've got full contact on the outer wheels as well, just like we have on the inner wheels. And what's going to happen, and I'll start describing this now so that when we get to it, it makes a little more sense. The wood is too heavy. The wood blocks that we're using is much too heavy. And I've been looking at other builds that people are doing, and there's a couple of little techniques that you can do to dramatically reduce the weight and still maintain a measure of strength. One of them, and the easier of the two options I'm going to mention now, is replacing the wood with ballast blocks out of the air components. And you'll see them, and the nice thing about them is you can adjust the weight of each ballast block down to a relatively small amount compared to a wood block. And then you join them all together with braces, as you would a wood system, as I'm doing now, and it's as strong as, if not stronger than wood by all appearances, but much lighter. So you can still build on it the way you would with wood. There's all kinds of different things that you can do with it, but it's lighter, and that's kind of the key thing. The other thing that I'm trying to practice and get good at is making things almost exclusively out of braces. I've seen some really, really cool things that people have made, and it's like 90% of what you see moving around is just braces moving in between components, and it's just fantastic. And it's the kind of thing that's, right up my alley in terms of things that I enjoy, because it's a little bit challenging to kind of visualize it and make it happen, but really, really looks neat when it works. So we're going to do a little bit of that, a very, very small amount of that. But these are the ballast blocks that I was talking about, and you can see you place one, and then like we did with all the other machines previously, you can set the parameters, I guess you could say. In this case, you can scale the weight up or down. We scaled it down to the minimum value. And now I'm going to speed it up as we're placing these, because once you've seen them placed and seen us changing the values, there's not much more. There's not much more you can learn from it. It's just making sure that we've got them placed the way that we need them to be, so that it's contacting the wheels. That's kind of the goal here, is as it's spinning, we always want something in contact with that outer ring of wheels. And again, it's like building circles in Minecraft. You have to kind of make things work, even though it doesn't seem like they might work. Now, one of the things that I would discover as I was building this, and then later testing it, is that the ballast blocks have that same kind of thing about connecting as the wood blocks. They don't always connect the way that you would expect them to, and you find out when you hit space or press play to put the machine into active mode, so to speak, and things just fall off. For no reason whatsoever, they fall out because they weren't connected. So what we're going to need to do after we get all of these ballast blocks in place, and get everything set, all the different weights set, is we're going to have to connect everything with braces so that we don't have to worry about things falling apart, things detaching from one another, or not really detaching from one another. It's just you thought they were connected, but when you press play, you find out the hard way that they weren't. So we've got half of the circle done. And the thing is, if you look at it from far enough away, it actually does start to look like a circle when you kind of do this sort of pattern on something this size. And again, it's nice, I think, aesthetically, but also primarily to make sure that we've got contact with the wheels. And once we get all the weights done, we should be able to release it, and you'll get an idea of what I was talking about when I said the things that we thought were connected weren't connected, but were still, it doesn't mean we did anything wrong necessarily. It just means we weren't finished as much as we might have thought we were. So you see that? It's kind of broken in that one spot there, and then over here, two of them fell right out. It's not a big deal. It just means when we press space, everything's going to go back to the way it was, and we can connect everything with braces. But you can see we're making good contact with the wheel all the way around, so the shape is good, We just have to get busy with the braces again. Braces are, I'm trying to get in the habit, and you guys are free to let me know, speeding up the sections where I'm doing the bracing, because it's pretty repetitive and it's something that you can see. I think this is a fairly reasonable speed to be watching the bracing going into place without dragging it out any longer than we absolutely have to. Like I say, for those of you who are maybe new to my content, I like to be able to show the concepts and discuss concepts, and that, people maybe take away something that they can use in their own builds. And also there are people who want to duplicate the things that I do, and I hope that they can see from this enough that will allow them to do that if that's what they want to do. But we're trying to find a balance between the two, is basically what I'm getting at. So we go all the way around, and all this is doing right now, or all we're trying to do with this, is connect the ballast blocks together. And now we're going around and trying to strengthen them a little bit by doing some braces on the diagonal that also sort of follow the perimeter of the circle, so to speak. And by the time it's all said and done, it's actually going to be fairly strong. And that's kind of the neat thing with the braces, is that it takes a little bit of time, and this part isn't necessarily difficult in terms of visualizing what you're trying to do, but it makes such a huge difference to the performance of anything that you might be trying to make. Is bracing it properly is the difference between it falls apart right away or it actually lasts to do whatever you want it to do. So you can see now, again, pretty reasonable contact with the wheels on the outer edge. You can see it's still bouncing a little bit, and that was kind of my tip, that it's too heavy. It's still too heavy for what we want to do. When we've got everything in place on top, all the mechanisms, the reloader and the lobber itself, if it's bouncing and if it's kind of struggling a little bit to rotate, then that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But if it's doing that now before we've built anything on it, that's going to be a problem, because chances are by the time we get everything else on top, it's just going to collapse as soon as we press play. And one of the interesting things, being that this is an early access game, is that apparently the Unity engine is what they're using to make the game. And you see now kind of connect it all together a little bit with the braces, and it spins very fast. The game is made with the Unity engine, Unity 4, I believe. And the Unity 5 engine has just come out, and they're trying to port it over to Unity 5. There's a few little hiccups that they have to work out to make it happen. And apparently with that will come a dramatic performance increase, because right now this setup here, when I press play, the computer works very hard to make everything look the way it's supposed to. It's pretty slow when you start, putting all kinds of different systems together. But hopefully that will be improving very soon once they're able to port it over to Unity 5. So for now, if you're looking at me go into active mode with the machine and it looks pretty kind of laggy, it's going to be a short-term kind of scenario that'll be fixed in time. So what I'm doing now to reduce the weight is changing wood blocks for ballast blocks as best I can. But one of the things that you'll notice is the braces that I'm putting on now aren't actually connecting to the steering block in the middle that's doing all the turning. So when I hit go and try and turn it, only the middle portion turns, because the braces aren't connected to anything there. It's an easy thing to solve. You just extend the braces again from the ballast blocks to the middle or to the wood, whatever you want to do. You can have braces that overlap within one another and they work just fine. The nice thing about braces is there's no clipping with them, so they can pass through objects, they can do all kinds of crazy stuff. But it's just, again, visualizing where everything needs to connect in order to work and where it actually does connect based on what you've done up to a point. So a little bit of troubleshooting, a little bit of fixing, and then things seem to work okay. So I started pulling this apart and thinking, I don't want this anymore because it's wood and it's too heavy and we don't need it anymore because we've got the ballast and we're using the braces. And I forgot that we have to have it sitting on the wheels on the inside. What I'm going to do before the next episode is I'm going to swap these wood blocks in the middle out for ballast blocks, just like we've got on the outside, change the weight, and then we should be good to go building. I'm thinking we'll probably have to build the lobber with an eye to the loader for the third episode, so we're going to have to keep in mind that the loader's going to have to fit in there somehow. But the next episode will be the lobber, and at least it'll give us something that we can play around with and have a little bit of fun with in between episodes. And then we'll go from there. Like I said, this is just mostly to practice with the components and kind of take ideas from the head and put them into the game in ways that actually work. That's one of the things that I like about games like this, is that's part of the fun, is the learning curve And then once you've learned the things, then it's just kind of exploding with all kinds of ideas and doing crazy fun stuff. So I'll let you watch the rest of this without me babbling over it. If you want to be notified when I add new Besiege and other videos, you can always subscribe to my channel. And you can follow me on social media for notifications. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Please leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.